I think we will get started. As more trickle in, we'll bring them in. But a final good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all. Thank you for joining us for this kickoff meeting of the Freshwater Restoration Community of Practice. We're very excited to get this going and to hear from you during this meeting on what you'd like this community of practice to become. Before we dig into content, though, we want to make sure that everyone who would like to use the translation features are able to do that. So we will have live interpretation. You have the instructions here on how to enable your interpretation. So you'll have to find the icon at the bottom of the screen, a little globe, and then we have the instructions here depending on your language. Again, we can offer this in French, Portuguese, and Spanish. I also want to point out that even if you are an English speaker and listening in English, because we will have some content in other languages potentially, you should select English rather than just original audio to ensure that if needed, you will get the English interpretation. So we'll give everyone who needs to a moment. I'll leave this screen up. And again, for those just joining, if you wouldn't mind also within your name on your Zoom background and profile, adding the language code for your preferred language. That's going to help us when we're assigning people into breakout groups. When we do breakout groups later in the session, we want to organize those according to language to just facilitate easier conversations. We won't have the interpretation available in the breakout groups. Interpretation is only going to be available in the plenary sessions here. Okay. Hopefully, people have not had too much difficulty setting up their interpretation. I'm going to move on from this screen. If you do have questions about that, you can please put them into the chat and we will try to help you make sure that the translations are working for you. But we're going to get started now. So I'll begin by introducing myself. My name is Derek Vollmer. I'm the Director for Waterscapes with the World Wildlife Fund, WWF. I'm here, though, in my capacity as the chair of the Technical Assistance Working Group for something called the Freshwater Challenge. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But the Freshwater Challenge is collaborating with Conservation International and their Jeff project on ecosystem restoration integrated program. We've developed this community of practice as a collaborative space for practitioners. So we have a number of us who have organized it. We work for global organizations, but we really want to be supporting those of you on the ground or who are working with those on the ground to facilitate much more and larger scale freshwater restoration. And so we'll talk about the different modalities that we think this can work, but it's really only going to work if you participate. And so we're very happy at the turnout we have for this initial meeting. We hope to find ways to keep you engaged over the years as this community of practice develops. So very briefly about the Freshwater Challenge. This is a country-led initiative. We now have over 50 countries and the EU who have signed on to become members of the challenge. It is voluntary, but it is aimed at accelerating and increasing the ambition for freshwater ecosystem restoration specifically. There is a lot more attention now on restoration generally, and we love to see that, but freshwater ecosystems continue to be the most imperiled, degraded ecosystems, freshwater biodiversity, the most threatened, and at the same time, water security among the biggest challenges that we're facing due to climate change, as well as general development challenges. And so there's a huge opportunity for more freshwater restoration to be taking place. And so within the challenge, we aim to support countries on setting targets for restoration, planning and prioritizing areas for restoration, developing the enabling environment and policies, and then monitoring progress on the ground. Monica, I don't know if you'd like to say a few things about the ERIP at this time.
Yeah, sure. I'll be very brief. Hi, everybody. I'm Monica Barcelos Harris. I'm the Restoration Partnerships Senior Director with Conservation International, and I'm the project lead for the Global Coordination Project of the Ecosystem Restoration IP. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today for the launch of the Freshwater Community of Practice. As Derek said, this is a joint initiative between the ERIP and the Freshwater Challenge, and we're super excited to bring together all the countries and organizations that are doing all this amazing freshwater restoration work globally. This community of practice is really a space for all of you practitioners working with on rivers, wetlands, watersheds in different countries to share your practical experience and all of us to work through our common challenges, everything from design to implementation. So a little bit on the ERIP, it's this Jeff-funded program that is led by Conservation International to support the planning and implementation of restoration across 20 countries. And we're working with 6 UN agencies and the governments and civil society in all these countries. So this community of practice is really an idea to better connect these efforts between these 20 countries with other global initiatives like the Freshwater Challenge and give it back to the community. So we hope this space is a practical, open, collaborative, and that you feel at home to share experience, ask questions, and learn from each other. So thanks again. I really hope that this is going to be a success. I'm very excited to see the exchanges, and I'll pass it back to you, Derek. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. And we do want to jump in very soon to some perspectives from some within this community who are ready to share their initial experiences, focusing on integrating fresh water into larger restoration projects. Before we do that, though, we have a little poll because we wanted to find out from our audience here how many of you are hardcore freshwater focused people, such as myself. How many of you support a range of biomes or a range of topics, and freshwater restoration is just part of it? And how many of you are maybe just getting started in this field and are hopefully joining us so that you can learn? So if you don't mind helping us gauge our audience here. While you're doing that, I also want to make sure that everyone is able to update their name within their Zoom profile and add your language code. As you see, many of us here have an EN, a PT, hopefully an ES or an FR, depending on your preferred language. This will just help us facilitate the breakout groups that we'll do later in this session because we're going to be organizing those by language. Okay, and so far we're seeing about 2/3 of you are freshwater focused people. That's great. But we're also very happy to have people who that's only part of their remit. As I've found, there are a number of opportunities for improved freshwater integration by working with people who maybe see themselves as focused on landscapes or forests, or they work on freshwater issues, but not necessarily engaging in restoration yet. So we want to bring more people into this space and at the same time learn from those of you who have been really focused on this for a while. Okay, I'm not seeing it update too much anymore, so maybe we've plateaued here. So let's go ahead and we'll move right on into these initial lightning talks or presentations from some of you within this community of practice who wanted to share their perspectives on freshwater integration. So I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague, Mayra. Mayra, if you could please introduce yourself and then lead us to the speakers.
Of course. Thank you, Derek, and very nice to see this community of practice coming to light. We have been working with the Freshwater Challenge for at least, I guess, 3 years and a half or 4 years now. So having this integration with the ecological restoration program is something that we are really happy with. So I am Maíra Bezerra. I work as the leader of the Freshwater Science program with Conservation International. And my background is on ecohydrology. And today I'm going to be facilitating this session where we hope to hear a perspective from 4 colleagues that are part of the restoration program. And we hope that we will be able to explore how and why freshwater systems are being integrated into landscape restoration efforts. We are drawing from real world project experience with these 4 speakers. They will be reflecting a little bit on the primary motivations for incorporating rivers, wetlands, and watershed processes in restoration design, including links to climate resilience, biodiversity recovery, and benefits to local communities. So we have 4 amazing speakers, and these are Dr. Alana Rebelo. She's a senior researcher in the water science unit at the Agricultural Research Council and a research fellow at Stellenbosch University in South Africa. We also have here Dr. Sergio Miguel Lopez Ramírez, who leads the Sustainable Management Division at Fundo Mexicano para a Conservación de la Naturaleza. We also have Dr. Koc Quan Tran. He is a water resources specialist at FAO Vietnam. And finally, but not least, we have Dr. Emily Gonzalez. She's an ecological restoration specialist with Parks Canada. And each of these 4 speakers are going to be sharing their reflections. And I suggest that we go with the order that I just presented the speakers. So we could start with Dr. Alana Rebelo. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And good afternoon or good morning, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen. Are you able to see the presenter mode?
Your presentation is coming. Yes, we can. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much. My name is Alana Rebelo, and I'm involved in one of the ERIP projects in South Africa. And this project is titled A Transdisciplinary Approach Towards Restoring Selected South African Peatland Ecosystems and Their Catchments. So this is a photograph of a beautiful peatland system in the Western Cape of South Africa. And I'm going to just tell a very little bit about our project, and then I'm going to answer some questions that were posed to us. So this project aims to restore 3 peatlands across South Africa, and they are indicated here on this map. So you can see we've got a good geographic spread. This means different socioeconomic contexts, different biophysical contexts, and each of these systems are really so different. From dolomitic eyes up in the north, our karst peatland systems, to our palmite wetlands, the valley bottom wetlands that you see in the south, to the Maputo coastal plain. So very, very different, but all of them suffering under extreme pressures, degradation, drying out, lowering of the water table, and in certain years leading to fires, peat fires, subsurface fires, which are irreversible, and the damage is severe to livelihoods and to communities. And so our goal is to try and halt this water table drawdown, stop the systems drying out, even try to re-wet them. And we're hoping to be able to do so through this GEF project. You can see here some of our targets. We're hoping to restore some parts of the peatland, some parts of the catchment, and also hopefully have some carbon benefits as well and impact people directly. What's special about our project? South Africa has quite a long history of restoration, and we're hoping to learn from the past, learn lessons. So we're hoping to do things a little bit differently now with the knowledge that we have. And one of the key lessons is to work with people, involve people. And so we're embedding our project in a transdisciplinary framework. And what this means is that we go beyond sectors, go beyond disciplines, and that it's community-driven and sustainable. And we've had some experience doing this before, and we love it. And we can't wait to get started in each of our pilot sites and involve the whole community to do this restoration. We're also going to be having a strong training and capacity building emphasis, both for local communities and government. One big part of this project is going to be the evidence generation. I'm a researcher, so that's the part I'm very excited about. We're going to be documenting, monitoring the entire process, and making sure that we can show the impact of the restoration. Another really cool part of the project is our sustainability and upscaling. We're hoping to be able to come up with finance mechanisms and raise funds into those to continue this work into the future. We also want to do some innovative communication. Just want to see if my things are coming up. We're going to be using modern platforms to share information about our meetings in the catchments. And we're even hoping to develop a policy in South Africa specifically about wetlands. My arrow's not working too well. So one of the first questions that were posed to us was, what were the primary drivers behind incorporating freshwater systems into your landscape restoration project? So why did we pick peatlands and their catchments specifically? So peatlands and wetlands, so peatlands as a subset of wetlands in South Africa are the most threatened and least protected systems. We know this because we have a national biodiversity assessment run every 5 years or so, and we've just had the latest one published. You can see it indicated here and some headline indicators from this. And we also know, so while they're also like extremely threatened and impacted, they're also often the least protected. They're also very rare in our very dry country. And the benefits of wetlands to people are very large, and we really actually can't afford any more losses. Yet at the same time, there's very little funding in South Africa for restoration of these systems. And so we needed a dedicated project for this. So for us, it really started with the freshwater component. The second question was, what are some unique considerations for freshwater ecosystem restoration that your project has encountered? So I think I've shared a little bit about it in my introduction, but just something that I would add is that we understand quite strongly in South Africa that everything is connected. We don't look at ecosystems in isolation, that we're now restoring terrestrial systems and now we're doing a wetland and now we're doing a river, but we see everything as connected, both in terms of their surface catchments or watersheds, but also in terms of groundwater and the aquifers beneath them. And so this is, I think, something that we've been encountering and working strongly to think at an integrated catchment and holistic scale. Also, our focus is re-wetting, which is a difficult and contentious rehab objective or restoration objective. We're also doing restoration in catchments with vastly different stakeholders, as I mentioned, different socioeconomic contexts. So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. We need to be flexible. Some other considerations, stakeholder engagement is key and needed at each site. And these systems, we also have had to understand, because they're freshwater systems, that they're highly dynamic. Most systems are dynamic, but especially freshwater systems. And we also need to be thinking in terms of upstream and downstream impacts. We even in South Africa have specific legislation that has bearing on freshwater restoration. And lastly, any advice that we would give for landscape projects and how they might retrofit a freshwater component. I think 3 things we'd say: everything is connected. So there's not likely to be any restoration project that wouldn't have freshwater considerations. And also knowing your water resources helps to understand that better. So thinking through the water balance as well. If there's not a surface water component, thinking about evapotranspiration and the vegetation that's being rehabilitated and the impact of that on the water balance. And then lastly, not all interventions need to be very costly. So looking at opportunities to do small but impactful interventions. So with that, thank you.
Thank you so much, Elena. And just so everyone know, we hope to have some time for questions after the four speakers. So hold your question to after we are done with them. Now I'm gonna move to Sergio Lopez. Dr. Sergio Lopez, if you could share your insights. Thank you.
Sure. Can you see my screen now?
We can see your screen. Let's see,
Okay.
presentation mode. Perfect. Thank you.
Good. So this is our project, Origen, and its name has the freshwater thing in there. It's restoring watersheds for ecosystems and communities. It's implemented in Mexico, and I will only highlight in the map two things. One is the orange areas. Those are coastal watersheds where we have been implementing previous projects and where we plan to continue and upscale some of these interventions. So I will continue to be brief. So what were the primary, well, first of all, I love everything Alana mentioned, so I may even reinforce some parts. So what were the primary drivers? First of all, we built this project upon the lessons learned from these previous projects, C6, Conecta, and restoration of rivers. And three things came up from these lessons learned. First of all, targeting based on integrated watershed management plans is key. We know resources are limited, budget constraints and everything, but thus far this has been very useful. We have been working on these coastal areas because they are highly vulnerable to climate change, but with a lot of richness in terms of biodiversity. We have been implementing projects and we will continue implementing community-based water quality monitoring as one of these tools to engage the communities and of course also monitor the impacts that restoration has. And thus far we have learned that riparian restoration or working with these freshwater ecosystems is key. It's one of the most effective ways to conserve biodiversity because this is where where terrestrial ecosystems meet water ecosystems and so everything is really rich in terms of biodiversity, but it's also important for adapting to climate change and to improve water quality, which is very, very important. So I will just very quickly walk you through what we have been doing in some of these watersheds that we will where we have been working, and I will go back. This watershed is located here in Veracruz. There we implement, and you can see in the first years of the previous project, we developed these watershed management plans. So we identified areas with higher priority for either conservation, restoration, or sustainable management. We have been, well, I will go back. And then you see in orange some of the areas already under restoration where we implemented some of these practices. And we couple these restoration sites with permanent monitoring sites, but also with complementary monitoring efforts. One of these is the monitoring what happens with soil organic carbon in some of these areas. Then also working with producers to identify indicators that are relevant for them. For example, in this slide, you can see areas under regenerative ranching. And here the producers were interested in what is happening with the stocking rate because, productivity is very important. So we coupled all this monitoring of environmental services with indicators that are relevant for the producers. But then we also combine these monitoring sites with remote sensing analysis to see and to track what is happening with the restoration over time. Here you can see just some of the examples of the vegetation indices that we computed. And in these permanent monitoring sites, we implemented monitoring of water quality, such as indicators such as temperature, dissolved oxygen, turbidity, bacteria, and all this nice stuff that we all hydrologists love. So having said that, what are some of the unique considerations of our project? First of all, in Mexico, well, Mexico signed the Freshwater Challenge in 2023, but ownership, so this is particular of Mexico, ownership of the riverine areas is federal. However, in practice, it's complicated to implement this type of projects because jurisdiction is unclear. You know, we have also state, municipalities, communal lands, ejidos. So that is one thing that we have to consider when working in restoration of, uh, of rivers or wetlands in Mexico. And any advice for other projects? So I will add to what Alana said, everything is connected, but water is key to start dialogue across sectors because that's very appealing when working with agriculture, when working with private sector, with working, of course, with the ministries of environment. So we have learned that having some analysis of the areas with higher priority regarding the provision of ecosystem services and then developing some targeting criteria using this type of elements where we put the evaluation of hydrological services at the center is very, very useful to, to guide the restoration efforts. And the second thing would be we highly advise to georeference all your interventions and then keep track and use things such as remote sensing analysis to not only focus our eyes or our analysis on what happens at the points or at the plots, but also see all this connectivity at different scales. You know, being able to talk with watershed planners with different scales. So that would be my recommendation, and thank you, Mayra.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lopes. This was great. So we have had some examples from South Africa and an example from Mexico. Now we're going to move all the way to Vietnam with Dr. Trump sharing his perspectives now.
Thank you, Maria. And thank you very much for organizing this very meaningful sessions. And yeah, I was invited to share my experience, but actually I already gained some experience from you guys. And because our project is very brand new and it just launched 1 month ago, and actually we did not conduct the inception workshop yet. So actually what I can share with you is the reason behind why we choose water at the let's say the core to develop the solution for ecosystem restoration. So I would like to share a little bit my our way of thinking for that. Let me quit and to share my screen. Here it is, right? Yeah. So
We
the
can,
name of my project.
okay. We
Yeah.
can see your, yeah, we can see now. Thank you.
Thank you. So the name of our project is Enhancing Water Security, Biodiversity, and Resilience of Livelihoods through the Integrated Water Resources Management Ecosystem Restoration. And the case study is the Red River Basins in Vietnam. It is a long name, I know, but actually we try to reflect all the components of the project in the title. So we got the funding from JEPS, which is of 10.5 million, and we have the co-funding of 70.2 million, which is quite a large funding for us. And our project aims to apply the integrated water resources management and ecosystem restoration for the reservation of the ecosystem and to sustain and enhance the function of biodiversity and strengthen the livelihood resilience and two, improving the water security in the Red River basins. It is because and this is our project indicators, and it is this is the four main component. The first one to improving the water security by enhancing the enabling environment for integrated ecosystem restoration. And based on that, we design the incentive mechanisms that will simulate the investment, let's say infrastructure investment, to create more livelihoods, to secure the system for the local communities. And we also try to improve the capacity and knowledge dissemination. I'm sorry because it's now the dinner time in Vietnam, so we I have to go at home. Sorry for that. Why we choose the Red River Basin and why we choose water as the let's say the center point to for our ecosystem restoration solutions. First of all, the Red River Basin is very important for us. It is the largest river basin in terms of watershed area, and it is the second largest river basin in terms of discharge. More important, it is the home for more than 33 million people. And it has some and the water I think is a little bit away from that. Water has been used for developing the agriculture, and agriculture is a traditional practice for the people in this area. So basically, the traditional practice here use a lot of water, and because of that, we somehow damage the ecosystem, and also we reduce the value of ecosystem service in ecological service in this area. Why we have a lot of hydropower in the river, and in this area we have a lot of disaster, water-related disaster with very high frequency and also quite severe occur every year in the river basin. And moreover, the traditional restoration efforts happen in this area is forestation. So it is quite modest. The biodiversity seems not very strengthened. So we think that we need to find some what way to improve the ecological system in this area by applying the new NBS solution, or to have the participatory solution to enhance the ecological system in this area. And we might face to some challenges, and most of all, I think the coordination between sectors, which has been also mentioned by the colleague from Mexico, will be our first consideration. We have so many sectors involved into this project, from water resources management, from hydropower, which is energy, from environment, water quality, and from ecosystem and restoration effort. So there will be a lot of challenge for data sharing. Next to that, we have the problem with water use conflict. And now, if we give more water for ecosystem, then we might damage, or we might interfere the water use benefit of hydropower, for example. And you know, hydropower produce a lot of money and brings a lot of jobs to the local people. So the water conflict will be one of our consideration for this project. And some advice for similar projects. I don't know if I have any advice, but I believe that some stakeholder mapping will be very important to design the project, because this is what we are now facing too when we do not when we do not take into account all the participants in these projects before. Thank you very much for listening, and sorry very much for the noise of the people. Maybe.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tran. I couldn't hear anything, so no worries. We all juggle multitasking sometimes, especially when we have to participate in calls that are in odd hours for us. So we very much appreciate your presentation at this time for you. So we're gonna go back now to the Americas and have our fourth speaker, Dr. Emily Gonzalez, speaking about the work in Canada. Thank you. Yes, we can see your screen, not in presentation mode now. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for letting me go last because it's very early in the morning here. Hello, I'm Emily Gonzalez, joining you from Canada, a country shaped by water, home to the world's largest coastline. This image is from Fundy National Park, where the highest tides on the earth transform the landscape twice a day. It's also one of the 7 sites in the Respectful Returns Initiative, a salmon restoration effort that was recently recognized as a UN World Flagship for the decade on ecosystem restoration. And so this place, this work, this reminds us all of how dynamic and interconnected freshwater systems are. And I'm hearing this theme amongst all the speakers, as well as the theme of centering people in this work as well. So Parks Canada is the lead partner in this initiative. We bring together 7 salmon recovery projects spanning from the Pacific to the Atlantic coast. And as a federal agency, Parks Canada is responsible for stewarding national parks, national historic sites, and national marine conservation areas. Our role goes beyond protection. We also safeguard landscapes and waters, support species at risk, and create opportunities for people to connect with nature and history. Now, through this work, we aim to foster an understanding, respect, and shared commitment to sustainability for both ecosystems and the communities that depend on them. And so to respond to our first prompting question, what drives the inclusion of freshwater systems in our restoration work? Well, at the core, it's our mandate. In Parks Canada, we're responsible for protecting and restoring species and ecosystems within our jurisdiction. And we do that at the watershed scale, where everything is connected. And salmon are a powerful example of that connection. They are the thread that links rivers, forests, and oceans. And from coast to coast, salmon and communities are deeply interdependent, ecologically, economically, and culturally. So this work is also grounded in collaboration with Indigenous peoples at every single one of the 7 sites, because their cultural continuity and food systems are inseparable from healthy freshwater ecosystems. So restoring freshwater systems has meant restoring the relationships that sustain both ecosystems and communities. So what makes freshwater restoration unique? Each of our 7 projects has offered some unique considerations, some of them challenging. So the first one, Fundy National Park, the challenge was reintroducing a species that was basically extirpated. Returns were fewer than 10 individual salmon. And so in this case, it wasn't just about restoring habitat. We had to start with addressing the species directly. And that involved partnering with First Nations and industry to raise salmon in protective pens until they were strong enough to withstand the natural pressures in the rivers and the streams. And at the time, this was an innovative technique, and that's now being replicated in some other countries. And we have a population that is coming back in the hundreds now instead of the handful. So a takeaway here is that restoration started from outside the ecosystem itself and required collaboration and innovation with partners that we weren't used to partnering with before, and that was industry. At Kujabujuak National Park, the focus was about expanding into relationships with local Indigenous communities. So salmon are very culturally important species, and we needed to build trust and the knowledge systems to work in those streams. And so that is a journey of listening, learning, and co-management, and takes a lot longer than we might have expected. And we're still continuing to build on those relationships. And so the lesson there was that restoration is as much social as it is ecological. And that was a similar lesson in Terra Nova National Park, where the issue wasn't habitat, it was overfishing or poaching. And here, other jurisdictions were closing the salmon runs to protect the salmon. But fishing was such a very important to the local community. And the challenge was that they didn't trust the salmon counts that we were providing. And so instead of focusing on restoration or closing the fishery, we did something really different. We allowed fishing, but what we needed to do was build the trust and develop a monitoring program with the local community that also allowed them to continue to fish. And so once that trust was there, poaching stopped, and the community has become such a powerful steward of the fish that this is now the strongest run in the province. And then finally, at Pacific Rim National Park Reserve, we encountered the long shadow of past use. The stream was restored and had unprecedented salmon returns. But then a year after the restoration, the stream was destroyed by a rock slide. There were 3 streams, and 2 of them were destroyed by this rock slide in an unprecedented flooding event. And that was triggered by historic logging impacts on the slopes above the stream. So a lesson for us here is that those freshwater systems are deeply connected to their surrounding landscapes, and the past decisions have continued to shape outcomes in some unexpected ways. Now, the good news is that the one stream that hasn't been inundated is now still producing salmon at greater numbers than have ever been recorded. But across our initiatives, freshwater restoration has been about the species, the people, the history, and the connection, and that climate change is affecting these sites. Almost every one of these sites has been affected by unprecedented droughts and flooding that has had to expand the way we approach restoration, to have backup plans to our backup plans, and to be building resilience and not just focusing on small scale restoration. And so our bit of advice, I guess, is that freshwater systems are not just ecological assets, as we've been hearing, they're cultural, social, and relational spaces. And we can focus and restore for species that inherently link land and water. And so salmon have been so central to our work. Similarly, beavers, amphibians, riparian plants. We can naturally begin to reconnect hydrological systems when we also think about the complete needs of those species. They don't recognize the boundaries that we impose between terrestrial and aquatic, and so designing for them helps us reestablish those connections. And so what that looked like for respectful returns, our salmon-centered approach was about thinking through the full cycle of a salmon, including unobstructed streams, seasonal flows, the marine environment, and the human environment. And it means designing for a salmon's perspective. And so that's why I'm ending on this image of a snorkel surveyor from Fort Folly First Nation. So up above, you can see the surveyors pointing down to the salmon below. And the perspective is from the water, looking up into the land. Because when we shift our view from looking from land down, which is our usual perspective, to water looking up, I think we can not only restore ecosystems, but we restore that connection of land and water. Thank you.
Wow. What a way to finish our session here, Emily. Thank you so much for that emotional touch, and you were absolutely right. Wow. So I know that we are past time in the agenda, Derek, so I really want to be mindful of our time. But I just wanted to extend our much appreciation to the speakers. We heard from 3 countries that are part of the restoration IP: Vietnam, Mexico, and South Africa. Canada is not part of, for obvious reasons, but it is a very important country that is a member of the Freshwater Challenge. So we also wanted to bring a perspective of a leader on freshwater restoration to this session. I'll hand it over to you. I don't think we have time for questions. But the good thing is that the speakers are going to be part of the breakout activity that we're going to have next. So you can ask questions there. Over to you.
Thank you, Mayura. And yes, we want to move quickly into our breakout group discussions. But we do have the Q&A function here. And so for those of you who do have burning questions for the speakers, please park that into the Q&A and hopefully they'll be able to get to it. So I'm going to now, before we jump into the breakouts, I'm going to share a couple of questions that we would like you to consider. I'm not sure that I have the ability to share my screen right now. Okay, there we go. So again, we're going to be organizing the breakout groups around your preferred language, just for ease of everyone. But there are two main questions that we would like you to discuss, hopefully inspired by these talks. First is what are some next steps that you could take to improve freshwater integration? We heard many people talking about working at a watershed scale. A lot of what you do may be already organized around watersheds, but there are always opportunities to enhance the freshwater impacts or just measure those impacts. It's not a given that planting trees in a headwaters is going to lead to the benefits that you presume. You want to be measuring those, just as one example. And then also, what are the ideas that you have that are emerging on how a community of practice like this could support you in the work that you're doing going forward? So after the breakout groups, we will talk a little bit about some of the modalities we have in mind, but we are also open to suggestions. And so let's give 20 minutes in these breakout groups. Hopefully that's sufficient time to have some good discussion. And then we would like each of you to identify within your group a rapporteur, someone who'll be prepared to very succinctly summarize some of the big ideas and thoughts or questions that came out of your discussion. And so we'll reserve some time for that before we conclude at the bottom of the hour. And so we're going to start moving you over. We'll put these questions into the chat as well. And yeah, look forward to hearing what you come up with in about 20 minutes from now.
Whew, thank you guys so much for all of the interpretations. Sounds like it's going great. So I think we can all take a beat to relax now if you need water or anything. 1 sec, let me turn off interpretation so I can hear you, Rafael. Okay, it should be off
Okay.
now. Yes,
Okay.
what's up?
No. Just because you were asking, so I couldn't talk, but it's okay.
Great.
Oh, good. So yeah, thank you. We come back in 20 minutes. Yes.
Yes,
Thanks, Reba.
perfect.
I just have a little comment. Everything's doing super well, just like we mentioned last time, because during the poll, as people were answering, Derek kept talking,
Oh, I'll flag that to
Couldn't
him right now.
translate. Yeah.
and I was just like, it's
Forgot.
just yeah, it was really nice. I was able to slide it in really quick, but it was a bit of a challenge. So, but again, I'm not trying to complain. Just
Oh, no,
thank
not
you.
at all. It'll make it a
Thank
better
you.
experience for our participants too.
Him and
Sorry.
Mara are doing a very good job.
Great. I'll I'll chat that to him so he knows for the second poll.
I'll go grab some water. I'll be back in 10 minutes.
Yeah, take your time. Okay, everyone. I'm gonna turn interpretation back on. Thanks.
Okay.
Should be good to go now. Derek, I realize you're muted. I don't know if you've been speaking up until now.
No, I figured out how to unmute myself. Um, Welcome back, everyone. As sometimes happens with these sorts of meetings, people disappear as soon as they find out they're going to be breakout groups. So we're a little bit smaller, but we still have a good core group. Hopefully you had very good discussions. We had asked for rapporteurs, but I think in the interest of time, we're not going to go one by one and ask for a faithful reporting out of what you heard in your sessions, but I have the questions back up here, and we are really interested in any ideas that emerged on some next steps that you feel you could take to further freshwater integration. We also talked a little bit about what that means in our group. And then also any initial ideas you might have on how a community of practice like this could support you. We really want to develop this into something that builds on the strength of a global convening, facilitates a lot of peer-to-peer exchange across countries in particular, but also is bridging, people from different sectors as well. And so we've got a great cross-section of that. And we really want to hear from you on how we could build this into something that's useful. So I will stop talking. I think we'd love to just have people come off mute or raise your hand if you wanted to begin sharing. We will give up to 10 minutes, probably a little less than that. But again, this is another chance for you to share with this group on what you heard in your discussions. Catherine, please go ahead.
Sure, I can start us off. So quickly in our group, the first question about how to improve integration, we talked a little bit about the stakeholder mapping, multi-stakeholder mapping, that some of the case studies had showcased, and just knowing, and how important it is to know who's on the ground, who's doing the work, and how everybody could sort of collaborate and work together to advance any sort of restoration goals. And then for ideas for the community of practice, that's where we focused, I think, most of our discussion. And so we came up with a lot. But just to name a few, I think we really like the idea of showcasing more case studies. A bigger variety of case studies would benefit everyone, especially ones that showcase the contribution that the restoration makes to social and economic metrics in and around the restoration project. That's always a great way to communicate the success of a particular project. Links between restoration and conservation of landscapes. I think that's a really interesting one. And then the link, how do we link, this is an ongoing question I personally have, is linking that sort of like higher level international commitments, all of that very high level stuff to actual on the ground restoration work, the people who are, getting their boots dirty, who are doing the work. Sometimes there's a bit of a disconnect, or a lot of a disconnect, between big global initiatives and the folks doing the work on the ground. So how do we sort of link both?
Great, thank you. Anyone else with some reflections from their group? Euphrasia, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Please go ahead. And I should emphasize, feel free to speak in your primary language. We do have the interpretation now for the large group. And so, Euphrasia, Portuguese speaker, please feel free to speak in Portuguese, and we will have the translation.
Tá bem. Boa tarde a todos. Eu me chamo Eufrasia da Silva, sou especialista Sou coordenadora das comunidades das práticas para o projeto de restauração de ecossistemas de Angola. Gostaria de começar dizendo que para Angola, essa questão de restauração em águas doces é ainda uma abordagem consideravelmente nova, né? Então, para a primeira questão, nós dissemos que um dos próximos passos a seguir seria o fortalecimento do engajamento comunitário, pois as comunidades locais elas têm grande relação com as águas doces e, sendo assim, elas buscam destas águas um dos principais meios de subsistência, como as atividades de pesca artesanal. Então, procurar forma de engajar mais as comunidades seria um grande passo para nós. E para a segunda pergunta, nós achamos muito interessante o projeto do Canadá, que é sobre a recuperação de salmão, e gostaríamos de também tentar trazer um projeto parecido para a nossa, aqui para a nossa realidade aqui da Angola, né? Quem sabe um projeto de recuperação ou criação de peixes, quem sabe de tilápia. E, e uma das formas que nós vimos para aumentar o conhecimento sobre os projetos dos outros países seria a interação presencial, não é? Para se fazer um estudo de caso, especificamente.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other very eager rapporteurs to share from their groups? If not, then we will move to wrap this up. But I don't want to have everyone miss an opportunity to speak if they're really eager. Okay. Not seeing any hands. We'll move to wrap this up so we can finish on time. But thanks again for your participation. And again, we want this to be a true community of practice. And so we're going to look for all the ways that we can for a lot of engagement from you. We can organize webinars, of course, as part of that, where we're sort of pushing information out to a larger group. But we want to benefit from the knowledge and the insights that each of you have. And so we're going to seek every opportunity for getting you really engaged in the community. But there are different ways that we'll do this. And so, as I mentioned, webinars is one of the things that we do plan on doing. And in fact, through the Freshwater Challenge, we are organizing a webinar on the 27th of May, so the end of this month. That's on a topic that Catherine mentioned and came up elsewhere in discussions on the benefits, the quantifiable benefits of freshwater restoration specifically. So we have assembled hundreds of case studies of published restoration projects from around the world. We've organized this information, tried to extract some lessons, and also just distilled, hopefully very succinctly for people looking for that information, what the types of interventions were and the benefits that they yielded in terms of flood risk reduction, in terms of recreation opportunities, improvements to water quantity and quality, improvements to fisheries. And so the report is available. I think we're going to put the link to that in the chat here, but we're going to have a webinar where some of the co-authors will sort of bring that to life and direct users to how they can potentially use that information. And so we are very happy to organize similar such webinars on topics, and we want to hear from you on the topics that would be of interest. Related to that, and I know this came up in discussions, there's a lot of interest in more case studies. So that's certainly something that we can work on, commissioning case studies, working with some of you to document and then share evidence from work that you're aware of. Or again, if there are topics of interest to you, we can set about developing some case studies so we can bring that to a larger audience. I also mentioned a peer exchange. This is something that we have ideas on. This is a little more resource intensive if we are to do it in person, but we do have the ambition to facilitate some sort of cross-country and peer exchange learning opportunities. Sometimes just a couple days in country and face-to-face, you learn a lot more than if we send reports out to you. And so we want to find ways to facilitate real peer exchange, but of course we can do that virtually also. The last way that we want to engage you is through the ERIP forum. This is an online discussion forum that we're setting up. And again, I think we'll put some information into the chat for you on how you can engage with this. This will be a way that you can ask questions or share your ideas or your thoughts on what you'd like more information or support on. That'll be another way also if you want to engage an expert. If you say, hey, we've got a very technical question, can we consult with someone to get some advice on how to tackle this? And so that's something that we hope to develop and that we hope you make use of. So I think before we wrap, we do have a poll set up as well, just so we can get some initial votes on what of these areas of engagement you would find most useful. So I'm going to pause because I know this needs to be translated as well. But again, you choose all of these if they're all of interest, but we want to get a sense from the start of what you think would be very useful so we know where to focus our efforts. Okay. It's not a competition, but I see case studies are in the lead. Not surprising, certainly something that we can work on. And again, we're very happy to take suggestions on particular cases if you have something that you would like some support investigating and writing up. And I hope that we were able to address questions for those who are putting them into the Q&A. We will do our best to follow up. If not, I believe you know how to reach those of us who have organized this community of practice, so feel free to do that by email as well. We will take what we learned today and going forward, we will do our best to start developing some of these. We may be reaching out to some of you individually as well. We would like to be convening this sort of meeting, the hybrid with some presentations, but focusing on discussion every quarter or so. And so we would like to be organizing another such meeting in early August. So keep an eye out for that. We'll try and maintain a quarterly cadence, but in between, we'd like to be doing webinars. We can get started on some case study work and explore some of these other options. And then, of course, the ERIP forum is always going to be open, so feel free to jump into that at any time. So with that, I think we'll close the poll and we will wrap up. On behalf of all of my colleagues who helped to organize this, I'd like to thank you for participating. Hope you found this interesting and useful. Again, we want to build it into something that is more and more useful to all of you. And so we really value your feedback. I've got a QR code here just for the landing page of this particular community of practice. So if you're looking for more information or updates, that's the place to go. Thanks again to everyone. We want to end on time, so we'll wrap it up here, but hope to see many of you again in early August and to hear from you in the interim. Thank you very much.